Hello, everyone. Here we are again with the third episode of Techsphere, where we talk about tech words, software development, hardware development, product development in general, development practices, artificial intelligence, the latest trends, and agile practices, and everything around the technology world. And of course, each time we have very insightful discussions and awesome guests which give their life stories and challenges they encounter in daily life and how they solve them. And today I have my dear friend Martijn, and we are very excited to hear his story and experiences. And Martijn, please give a brief introduction about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Masoud, my dear friend. My name is Martijn Goossens. I'm a QA specialist consultant nowadays. I work for a company in the Netherlands called Sirius, where we do QA consulting, and I am also the manager of one of the teams as part of my consultant life. So I like bringing our expertise to customers, but also still practicing my expertise with the problems that and challenges that our companies and organizations face that hire us. So that's very exciting.
How many years of experience do you have, Martijn?
I've been in QA for over 20 years now. It's half my life. Oh boy, still having
Yeah,
fun.
still,
Still
that's
having
good to
fun.
hear. And how to come to that point where you are now? Like, I'm assuming, especially later on, some junior people might also watch this recording. And I assume you are in a position where a lot of people are planning to be in the future. So, how to do that? How to reach that position?
Yeah, it's interesting. Really, I sort of stumbled upon this role as a QA engineer as I was looking between my university. I ended my first study briefly, and then somebody said, "Hey, you should be a tester," and that's sort of how I got into this. I had a really wonderful mentor who taught me about ISTQB and how to look at websites, being the voice of reason, but also the representative of the end user in software delivery. And it was exactly all the things that I like to do with my interest in technology, but also, I'm a talkative, communicative guy. So I like to bridge the gap between IT, business, developers, but also be in there and help everybody around. So over the first, let's say, 10 years, I think I was just, part of the team, being the expertise in quality assurance. And as I didn't finish any IT study, I was also very keen on educating myself through online resources, but also joining a lot of meetups back in the day. I think before all the pandemics, we had a lot of community events, especially here in the Netherlands, which I really enjoyed being part of. It taught me a lot in the beginning of my career, and now still I like joining the conferences and see where our industry stands, what people are doing, and what technologies I need to be aware of. So slowly but surely, I noticed that with the experience I gained of different industries, different types of organizations, different ways of working, and I've been fortunate enough to be part of very innovative teams and organizations that also sped up my learning. But I
Mhm.
think looking for the diversity in teams and also applications that we test, I think that's super important because that's something that you bring. So learning about this was very interesting and helped me sort of grow in my career,
Mhm.
address more complex problems, and help more complex and bigger organizations. And that's also why I jumped into consultancy 6 years ago, and how I sort of grew in that area.
Mhm. Got it. But I already note a lot of things, Martijn, when you were explaining the first thing. Like I already wrote down some keywords like mentorship, growing yourself, some teaching skills or learning skills, and also ISTQB, maybe which is very important in terms of the training materials or certification. So I'll go over them one by one, but let's start with mentorship because when I talked with Christoph in the last episode, we also mentioned about this topic. So I assume this shows the importance of this idea, right? What kind of advantages did you get from your mentors?
Um, well, to also call back to the first mentor I had in a small company called Strawberries, Mariella, you know who you are if you ever get to listen to this. I knew nothing about formal software testing. I was an end user as I entered the field, but with this mentorship, she taught me the ropes of addressing software testing and using different approaches like boundary value analysis and all the formal types of testing that you can apply to any type and piece of software. So that really helped me. I never actually got the ISTQB certification until like 10 years after.
Mhm.
But having that kickstart from a more formal background, I think really helped me address the role in a proper way. um, I am very curious in my mindset, so I like exploring new applications and that kind of stuff. But these types of ways of working, more formal, is I think very useful in our industry, especially if you're just entering this field. They are, I think, really nice to grasp and use as first ideas to address any new piece of software that you get in front of you.
Mhm.
So I'm by now also on the fence of if certification, for example, is something that I would suggest to new people. But if you don't have any experience and background in software testing, I think it's very valuable to get these types of certification, and it will also help you to land a first job because it shows that you did some dedication and understand some of the practices that we use day in day out.
Mhm. I agree. Like in several fields, there are too many certifications, and I find some of them like they turned out to be just a business matter of thing. Like you even have to renew every year, and you have to pay for it. You have to take exams, or just for renewing, you have to pay. But ISTQB for software testing, at least the fundamental part, I think it's very valuable, right? If you don't know anything, especially, it teaches the terminology, the basic information, and as a starting point for the software testing world, I find it very valuable.
Yeah, I fully agree. And next to some of the more theoretical how to test stuff, I
Hmm.
think it's also very valuable to work alongside any professional in an software delivery team because knowing how to write user stories, bugs, how to work in refinements and be a voice of quality and testing in refinement sessions and early on in the process is something that you will need to learn on the job. I think most of
Hmm.
those things you can't really learn in a classroom, I think.
Another very good topic, Martin, I want to visit, like how to act in refinement meetings, how to have a key role in the team, especially as a quality assurance engineer. But please wait, I'll come to that point. But first,
Mhm.
again, continuing about self-growth, like how to know those mentors or how to find a good mentor.
Yeah, good question. I think I naturally was looking throughout my career for where do I not feel that I'm confident enough or am an expert in parts of software delivery or teamwork. And that's why I one of my my conference talks is also how to be a better test friend, and it's based on everything I learned throughout my career, not necessarily from test mentors, but also from developers, operations people, business, UX, UI, um, because I think we as QA experts, whatever your role is, have a very central role and are expected to know basically every facet of a piece of software. So we also need to dive into all those types of facets. Is it back end, front end? What is good UX, UI? But what is also business value and how to address this? Ultimately, also, of course, how to represent what the end user is actually wanting, using, and how to then, looking back at the business, increase revenue, or how many orders you do on a web shop. Those are all responsibilities that we can weigh in on as an expert of what is quality of software, I think.
hmm I think this is part of the whole idea, right? Breaking or removing the silos and understanding each other. Like a tester should understand front end, a front end should understand back end, and everyone should be familiar with our business goals as well. We were both there in Marta's talk, right, in Istanbul. She
Yeah.
was talking about this. Being aware of this, I think it's very important because most of the time these days I'm discussing with my team members like maybe this is not a real end-to-end case because it is not really covering what the users are doing. But how can they know what users are doing or what is the most valuable? Because we are talking about risk-based testing, the most prior test cases, but how to judge them, right? So in order to do that, you need a clear vision of our business.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I've seen our friend Martin Verlier to do this talk at the Istanbul Software Testing Conference. But I also know that Vitaly, another fellow speaker, is did a similar talk in October last year at Hustef, where he talked about the financials of software testing. If we don't understand how our software is of importance to the company that we work for, then we cannot do our job fully, I think. So we also need to take into account that, yes, the end user needs to work with this, but ultimately, our company is building this software for a reason. And we need to take this into account with our testing as well, because sometimes that also, you mentioned risk-based testing. The risks of not performing business is higher, or the priority of that is higher than, for example, any user desires.
Mhm. Yeah, I totally agree. And I see a question, so I want to ask to you, Martijn. Should the presence of a mentor to support us be a criterion for joining a company?
It's a very interesting question, and I wonder if most companies will have a ready answer for you if you ask this in a job interview.
hmm
At the same time, if you are curious enough and if you are somebody who can be a good test friend, I think we can bridge that gap ourselves and also address our own gaps of knowledge by looking for those people with expertise who are friendly and open to, somebody asking questions out of interest and learning. And most experts in the field, whether they are developers, UX, or maybe even a CFO, asking somebody about what drives them and what makes them happy is something that people most likely will answer to you.
I had the same experience with you in most the companies I worked for. There was not a clear definition of this mentorship program. And most of the time, as you just said, I didn't learn the most from my direct managers or my maybe test managers, QA managers, whatever, but some other inspiring people. So most of the time, I naturally find my way. I think this is what's supposed to be right. Like sometimes you have to observe and you have to find your career path.
Yeah, exactly. And to come back to the literal question, should a mentor be present in the company?
hmm
Um, I wonder if it needs to be in the company per se. It could also be somebody from the industry, somebody that you met at a conference,
hmm
somebody that you met at your previous company that you still grab a cup of coffee with every now and then, a peer that you met at a meetup. So even if the mentor is not available to you in the company, or people are not that willing, or the culture is not there, I don't think it should limit you in growth and making sure that you are keeping yourself up to date to practices and the industry.
So I think this shows the importance of community, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Because think about an engineering manager, for example. In the company, there would be limited number of people, which is maybe in the same level with you, or maybe even in higher levels. But in other companies or in the community, you can find more people.
Yeah,
which is
that's
trying to do same things as you, and you can do brainstorming activities.
exactly. That's typically how things work. If you express a genuine question of how you can grow to somebody who has that expertise, they are typically willing to help you. And on that note, it's also about giving back. Like halfway through my career, I also wanted to share the cool stuff that I was doing in my projects with other team members because I thought what I'm doing, I can use feedback. And I can only get that if I gather people around the story that I'm creating here. But also, if people have not addressed this type of software before, then maybe they can take something away from it as well. So I started organizing QA guilds and yeah, sort of internal meetup sessions, knowledge sharing sessions with other QAs. Sometimes I also involve dev to talk about cool topics, new techniques, or maybe a problem that I was facing in one of my projects. And that's how I also try to bring people together, which helps me find either mentors or mentees.
Mhm. I totally agree. I'm also thinking about organizing those kind of events in my company right now because I feel, yes, there is obviously the technical information sharing session or brainstorming sessions, but in the meantime, it relates to human side of things as well, right? What do you think? It brings people together. It gives chance to talk people to talk to each other. That's also very important, I feel.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to make the nuance that typically, if you're working in agile teams, which most people are doing nowadays, or some form of that, you are joining your team for quote unquote community sessions. Your team can be a community, but with the focus of just looking at the work ahead of us. People typically don't stand still and address questions, problems, or really improvements that are available to us if we just look for half an hour. And I also want to address that building a community should be a very explicit activity. It doesn't grow naturally, so you need to invest in that time, maybe organization skills, and sometimes your own study budget of your company.
hmm So we already start talking about community activities and maybe attending those kind of events. I will come to that point. But final question about career management. Like, how can people manage their own career growth?
It's an ever evolving question that I also, of course, face throughout my career. At any point in time, I typically wonder, what is the next step for me? Is what am I doing today still making me happy in 2 or 5 years? And sometimes 5 years is a very broad horizon. I was doing completely different stuff 5 years ago. I wasn't even going to Podia or being a manager, and look at me now. But I do notice that when I felt that I could grow a certain path, either more deep into a technology like security or performance, or maybe broadening my skills in the type of projects that I addressed, the type of team configurations that I worked in, that really helped me throughout my career and finding the interest and motivation to keep going and keep me interested in the more complex problems. So, reflect on yourself if the things that you're doing are still making you happy. Do you want to learn more and grow deeper into any of the skills that are around us in QA? Or maybe the next step for you is growing to be more of an engineer, maybe more of a people manager, maybe a community manager or a QA lead, guild leader. So there's a ton of options, and if you ever have questions, you can always reach out to me, and I'll help you out. So that's the community that we're building here, right?
hmm Yeah, so my key understanding here is be aware of yourself. Like, are you really happy with what you are doing? Is what you are doing matching with your expectations? And do this continuously, right? Like, as of now, you might be happy with what you are doing, but how about in a couple of years later, in 2 years, in
Exactly.
5 years? it will be the same. Or you would take some other actions, right, to maybe shape your career growth. Because technology is changing very often and very fast. And you have to adapt yourself as well. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a very interesting summary because it also makes me think about sometimes the change that we need to make or a career growth that is necessary for us isn't because of what we need or want. It's how the industry is shaping or forming around us. Um, I know that one of the potential topics we have is of course always what is AI doing to our industry or the applications that we test. But this also means that we need to, as professionals, look at what I, as a QA specialist, will be doing in 2 years, maybe 1 year from now. So the aspirations for yourself should also align with what is asked in the industry, aka what are companies expecting of you if you were to grow to another company, but also what are the applications that you're testing today looking like in a year, for example, with AI or new technologies like either cloud or going back from cloud to on-premise devices. Yeah.
So I believe this means it is not possible to say that I'm a manual tester. I don't do anything else. I don't do automation. Or I am an automation tester, so I'm not an AI person. I don't do AI. That's not possible to say anymore, right? You have to learn whatever we are facing now, whatever you are testing. You have to know the product, and you of course you have to test AI if the product has some AI modules.
Yeah, exactly. Funny thing is, in my career, I'm old enough that I started before the app stores were filled with tons of apps. So when I joined my, I think it was second company, it was a social media company here in the Netherlands. I suddenly had become lead mobile testing for that company, while mobile testing was still in its early days. There was no Appium. It was only there when I just barely left the company. So approaching new technologies is something that will always be super relevant for us as testers because that's what we do. We address software. So being aware what the software looks like and how the world is changing software is super relevant for anything we do in our careers. In that light, I think if you're wondering what you can do, you can always be more T-shaped, be more spread out in your expertise, as you also mentioned. You can't
Mhm,
bank anymore on saying, I'm a test automation engineer. That's what I do. You need to be broader than that.
mhm.
Same for manual tester. Even if it's very cool on your resume today, if you're just a very isolated AI tester, which I wonder what that really is, I think you need the broad experience of being a test automation engineer, but also knowing how to do exploratory testing as a manual tester, because those are super valuable skills in any software, also AI. So being broadly skilled, I think, is something that anybody should achieve as a QA professional.
Mhm. I definitely agree. And I see another question in the chat, which is about how do you see yourself in 5 years? This is generally the HR or the recruiters are asking, right? Especially in the interviews. I never like this question, Martin. How about yourself? Does it make sense? Like the question is about maybe our aspiration will already change before 5 years. What do you think?
Yeah, looking at my career in like 4 blocks of 5 years, spanning the 20 years that I've been in QA, uh, every of those 5 year blocks was different. So I don't think I would ever ask a new recruit to explain this to me. But what I do think is super important as sort of now a consultant, but also team lead, what drives you, what motivates you? Because I do see that some people in the industry still think it's okay to not think about career growth, but still jump companies. So that's interesting to me.
I think this is a more important question, right?
Mhm.
Because I mean, everything is not in our hands. The world can bring us to some place we don't know. But what motivates you? What makes you happy? I think this is more important.
Yeah, and I've always admired how people from different demographics join our cool community of QA specialists. I've seen chefs, I've seen people from a sporting background join IT and become QA engineers. Um, but on the other side, I, as a passionate QA specialist, have also been very interested in everything that QA spans. I've dived into the OWASP top 10 to sort of learn something about security. I'm not a security tester, but I know about it. And
Hmm.
similarly, performance testing, I dove really hard into that and made it my own. And now I think performance testing is one of the cool things that we can do. I don't want to make it my day job, but it's one of the expertise that I bring with me. So there's a lot of cool stuff to explore.
You highlighted diversity before as well, so I assume it is very important, right? Especially for testers, I observe the same thing. Like there are people, a lot of people with different backgrounds, some musicians, some painters, and with a lot of different disciplines. They are becoming software testers and they perform very well. I think that there are a lot to learn from each other.
Yes, indeed. And I'm currently on a project where I'm teaching a risk analysis course. We talk about the ISO, I think it's 25010, where there's like 40 software quality attributes. And if you don't know all of them, I think that's very fair. But at the same time, if you don't know most of them, how can you prioritize your testing and be an effective QA specialist in your team, in your company? So if you don't know about performance testing, I think you should at least learn what aspects are important in that area and how, in that case, is that important for your applications that you maintain and test.
That's very interesting. I was not aware of this, Martin, and I just checked in Google. I think it is ISO 25010, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, 40 quality terms. Okay, okay. I will read more this. It's looks very interesting.
Yeah, we use it in one of the methods that's called risk mining,
Hmm.
and the ISO is one of the key inspiration points in that practice, where we have printed a deck of cards with all 40 of those attributes. And if you are looking at one of the features of your software, or you could also do it in a helicopter view and look at your application landscape. If you need to pick 5 quality attributes out of those 40 that matter the most to your software package, then you can plan for this. You can prioritize any test activities that you have in front of you. And the team is also more aligned and aware of the risks in that. So I think it's a really cool guideline for us to bring with us to our work.
Thanks for sharing that. And I think at this point I can ask the connection between being a public speaker and your career, because I know you are an international keynote speaker. What this added to you, to your growth? What were the advantages, the biggest advantages you had, and why do you do that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's start with how it all started. When I started my role as a consultant 6 years ago, they asked me, "Hey, Martijn, we expect you to be a thought leader in your field." I was like, "Okay, sure. I've been in this field for 14, 15 years now. What does that mean? How does that apply to me?" And I was like, "I have 15 years of very cool QA and quality experience, but what I'm noticing is that people don't see me as an expert yet. They don't know all the things that I know and all the cool things that I've did. So maybe I should talk about them more. Maybe I should showcase them and broadcast it." And that's also connected to one of the lingering ideas that I had. I wanted to try out public speaking. throughout my career, it's also always been one of the things that I've been curious about. So I thought I brought those two goals together: how to confirm my position as a thought leader, but also try out this public speaking thing. And well, as you mentioned, it kind of worked out. I've been now successfully accepted to a bunch of conferences. I've been invited as a keynote speaker, and yeah, my calendar for this year is full, so that's pretty cool. Um, but what drives me most still every time that I go to a conference is connecting with the people, sharing my story, but also listening to other stories and the stories of people on the floor. Why did somebody listen to my story?
Mm-hmm.
What did they want to take away from that? And how can I help them if I just talk to them over lunch or, the coffee break? So I really enjoy the community that I'm building with this. And at the same time, and you probably also know this, I really love being among the speaker peers, as they are also very cool people all around. I love chatting with you, for example. So it's brought me a lot of connections as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do feel the same. And you said your calendar is full for this year. How many events are you going? How many talks will you give
Well,
this year?
my ambitions for every year is that I find 4, max 5 conferences that I can fit into my schedule as a consultant, as a team manager, but also as a proud dad of 2 and a husband. So I think 5 is something as a max for myself. I know that
Mhm.
some people have higher ambitions or a more empty schedule and do 20, but for me, 4 or 5 is the sweet spot.
So you need permission from the real boss, right? Who is at home.
Exactly. If
Or
she's not
maybe,
on board with
or
any of
maybe,
this, I wouldn't be doing it.
or maybe bosses. Three of them.
Exactly, exactly.
Nice, nice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely agree what you just said, Martin. Like connecting with people, and of course you connect with speakers, especially. That's a subset of the whole community. But of course with everyone. Like when you, as you said, when you showcase your ideas, you already collect some feedback, so you can update them. You fine tune, not only the presentation but also your thoughts, ideas. I think this is already very cool. And also, in the meantime, listen to other people. And maybe you might not be aware of everything what other people are doing. So, by listening to other talks, I think there might be some insightful points where you can try to adapt those ideas.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's one of the things that I pride myself on doing. Whenever I'm on the program, I typically have listened to 3 or maybe even 10 other talks. And if I have the time, I typically adjust my presentation last minute, last moment to include some of the learnings that I've seen from other speakers that shared another point or another idea, maybe even in a different context. Um, as an example, for the test automation days this year, 2 of the morning keynotes actually addressed the topic that I wanted to bring to the audience, and I made pictures while I was in the audience. I put them in my slides to really uh, contribute their points into my talk at the same time, because I think those stories also sharpen my message and enhance the delivery for anything that I can bring. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yes, so community engagement and maybe even being a public speaker is important, and it is valuable for your growth as well. So it at least makes you more visible, right, in the industry.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that I have addressed the big question of how can people see all the value and knowledge that I have and can bring to people who want to be in conversation with me, if it's a company or a peer or a mentee. I just want to make the world a better place with the knowledge and power that I have. That's always been my spirit, being a positive guy that I aim to be. So yeah, being a public speaker has brought me a lot of that attention and yeah, put me in the limelight that I was sort of not necessarily looking for, but it's helped me in a good way.
But how to be a public speaker, Martin? Because some people even don't know what to do. Like I'm explaining them, there are platforms that they can apply, they can submit their papers, and then there's a process for being accepted or not. But can you explain how it works?
Yeah, it's a very interesting process, and what I found over the past 5 years of being a public speaker is that most events follow the same guidelines. Um, and what you also mentioned is it all starts with a call for papers. Whenever a conference starts, they open up the doors and the inbox for any cool idea that you want to bring to the audience. And this is where I think in the beginning I had to learn the most about what are those messages that I have, that we bring, that we experience, and how to format that to something that can be of use, of value, and of inspiration to an audience. Later on, if you sort of become more of a public speaker, you can even enhance that and make sure that you know the room, the audience that you're going to address. But first off, make sure that you understand your expertise. That's something that I work with in the mentees that I have bringing people to public speaking. The first notion is understanding what makes you happy and what are stories that you want to bring passionately to other people, and then thinking about what are learning points from that story so we can also address it into an abstract.
Mhm.
And if you have that abstract, that's something you also need to practice a bit. It's nice to have help there in the community. But once you submitted that abstract, it's hoping, wishing. It's also a bit of luck, because some of those conferences are heavily bombarded with great papers. So getting in there is very tough, especially as a new speaker. And then you get that email, you've been accepted. And then actually the trouble starts, right? Now you need to make a presentation and get ready for the show. So that's very interesting.
This is where the trouble starts.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Thanks for explaining this. So I assume we discussed the advantages and the importance of it. But how about the challenges? This I can relate to a question I see in the chat, because it is also time consuming, right? You should spend some decent time on it. As you just said, even for preparing the slides or even preparing the abstract. So if you have a full-time job and if this is not a part of your role, how to balance this? And what are some other challenges?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, because I've sort of naturally grown into this as I was very intrinsically motivated to do this, and I took a lot of those challenges for granted. But looking back, I think as my company back then asked me to be more of a thought leader, I also asked them to invest in me, and support me in this journey. Luckily, in that company, there were other public speakers that could help me. But it also meant that I could take some coffee breaks and meetings with those people to prep my abstracts, to prep my talk, to help get feedback on my slides. Um, so balancing this in a company is typically very tough, because I know that even professional speakers, and I think yourself also, in some of the companies that you've worked for, um, not all companies think that the visibility of their employees is important, is of value.
Yeah, yeah.
So being away on what they think is a break
Yes.
um, is a discussion that I think we need to have and hold very often. For me, it's very similar to any quality talk that we have in our work, because typically people also don't want to think about quality or testing or the bugs that we found. So we need to make a good case about value and why we want to do this, either a bug or public speaking, right? So I think
Hmm.
it can bring a lot to you as an expert.
Hmm.
Um, and if not, I think it's also feasible to do this in your own private time. It's also what I do most, partly because I also love tinkering around with my abstract ideas, tinkering around with my presentations. So preparation is key. And if you work on your presentation every week for half an hour, typically you get your acceptance half a year before the actual conference. And then, well, you've got plenty of time to actually complete this with very low effort.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you need to get permission to be away from your work. And I hope that you don't have to use your own private personal vacation days for that. But I know that some companies will force you to do so. It's a tough situation, but I also think seeing the world, meeting up with the community, and experiencing everything that being a speaker brings is worth it, in some sort of way. And lastly, I do want to address that we are pretty fortunate in the QA community that we have a lot of events that will reimburse you as a speaker for your travel, for your accommodations. And as such, you do need to have some sort of money to invest up front, but you will get it back in half a year. But also be aware that as a new speaker, you might also want to address some conferences that don't. So it might also cost you money to actually get on stage. It's not what I promote people to do, but you need to be aware that this is a dark part of being a public speaker.
Mm-hmm. So if you are fortunate enough, if your company or if the organization itself is supporting you, then it's already good. But otherwise, you have to manage all these kind of challenges.
Yeah, and again, speakers all around you will be able to help you. I do want to plug a blog by a befriended speaker, Benjamin Bischoff. He has a great blog that I don't know by heart, but if you look for Benjamin Bischoff blog, he has a post on how to get into public speaking, which I think is very accurate and valuable.
I think I saw it. Yes, yes. Maybe we can put the link after the recording is published.
Yeah, it would be great.
Cool. Yeah. And how about organizing events, Martijn? Do you do that as well?
Not yet. Not yet. It's been very inspiring to do. As I mentioned, I like to bring people and communities together, typically inside of companies as a consultant, but also as a QA lead. But I do take inspiration from great people like you, Masood, and Okan, who started the Istanbul Software Testing Conferences in the time that I was a public speaker. I've been fortunate enough to be a speaker at both events. And it's really wonderful to see those small communities grow into really big professional events. And of course, that's something that I admire. And I will share that there is some ambition.
Mm-hmm.
We'll just have to see when the time is right, and when I have a spare time next to all the work that I'm doing to take up such an endeavor. But the seeds have been planted.
Sounds exciting. Maybe no spoilers, but will it be something in Netherlands or?
I'm thinking about this. At the same time, I do notice that the Netherlands is very full of QA events and QA conferences.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if the market might already be oversaturated.
Mm-hmm.
But bringing people together is always a good reason. We just need to make sure that it fits in the location, in the timelines of everybody's work year. So maybe the Netherlands, but I'm also open to other locations.
We are in Belgium, Martijn. We are very close.
Yeah, you know that I'm just across the border. So for me, Belgium is definitely an option.
Yeah, it will take, I think, around 1 hour to drive.
Exactly, and the great beer is also a very good reason to have a conference party there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's important. Like I know some conferences change locations just to attract more people. Like the location, the local tastes. Those are important things to bring people.
Yeah, and to also sort of travel back to the question of what does it bring me as a speaker, I love to travel and see the world. So this public speaking career of mine has also brought me to a bunch of wonderful places in the world. That's also why maybe the Netherlands is oversaturated and we should look for something more exotic.
Yes, we should find an island.
Perhaps.
Nice, nice. So wrapping up this event attendance or organizing section, let's go back to career management. And I already see a question. First, I want to ask that, which is, with all the changes in technology we have seen, what is one thing about QA that has stayed surprisingly constant? Nice question.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it also immediately for me hints back to that ISO 25010 25010. Out of those 40 software quality attributes, I think at least 70 to 80% of those are relevant in any piece of software. And even if you look at the most modern type of software, aka LLMs, AI, machine learning, and all that cool jazz stuff, um, even that types of software needs to be performant. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be valuable. There's also a cost factor in mind that we need to be cautious of. So I think quality of software is always something that people wonder about, that a lot of people don't have expertise in, and we do as a community and as a bunch of professionals. So staying on top of what quality means in any type of new software is very interesting. And this also reminds me of a talk of a fellow speaker, Maria, who I think come fall, she will talk about the quality metrics in AI and LLMs. And there's been a bunch of other talks about this as well. But we need to learn about these types of metrics and attributes as software professionals, as I mentioned earlier. We need to be on top of the ball.
Hmm. And what does quality mean?
Yeah, what is quality? Well, and that's also a very interesting question. Looking at the trainings that I'm now facilitating at my project, quality in our tester minds sort of by default means, does the software work and do what we expect it to do? But that's a very broad question. While
Mhm.
automatically most people, business people, developers, sometimes even testers, will only look at the functional aspect of it.
Mhm.
And I typically want to look at software in the broader scale of organizations, business, but also end users. So, um, if your software is not really performant, but you're building a mainframe, and people don't really value performance as a quality aspect, they really want the backend to do the things that it needs to do. On the other hand, I also typically talk about risk appetite. If you are a very big bank, there's legislation and risk of financial fines, but also missing money.
Mhm.
There's those people and those teams typically don't have a high risk appetite, whereas any startup just wants to get the software to the end user and learn from it, pivot if they need to. So the risk appetite in those types of teams is very different. What is quality really depends on aspect and context.
Mhm. Yeah, it is fascinating to see that, as you mentioned, it might look simple, or when you say quality assurance, it feels simple in the first place. But then we realized that most people do not really understand what it is, right?
Mhm.
This week I just wrote a blog about the biggest quality misconceptions, like what people assume is correct, but what is not. And I think it is really important to understand this difference. Like these days, I'm advising to juniors or some other people, like not try to run test as much as possible, but instead think about the value that you are adding and act as a quality engineer. But we have to elaborate more into what being a quality engineer means.
Yeah, very true. I think that value question is something that should drive our work, our decisions in work, but also our recommendations and advice as QA engineers.
Hmm.
Um, because we don't have time to test it all, so we also need to be aware of where we focus our efforts, but also if the bugs that you bring are of value and will be addressed, because maybe you didn't need any time to write half of them.
So, what do you advise to young people, to people who just start their career, Martin? How do they behave? How do they become a team member? How do they bring the biggest value in their teams?
Yeah, to think back of the talk that I have, being a better test friend, it's, I think, bridging the gap of our expertise as quality assurance experts, and finding what quality means to anybody in your team. You know, every developer will have an expertise. Is it the backend developer, the most senior developer, the front end developer? But also talk to, people from data. What is quality to them, or operations? In the talk that I have, I also talk about how I learned that performance is a super important metric that I can work with operations people, because they have dashboards on server usage, CPU metrics, and memory usage. And me, as a QA specialist, want to know what data is available and how we can measure quality in a useful way. Well, operations has taught me that. So finding the people around you with your expertise as quality, but also a genuinely interested question of what is quality to you and how can I represent you or help you in your job. I think those are the best things that you can do as a junior.
It's obvious why we are always saying communication and curiosity is the most important skills for a QA tester, right? So talk to everybody, try to understand the expectations, try to understand the meaning or the value of what we are delivering. These are the biggest keys, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah, very accurate.
Yeah. And finally, Martijn, again, like I couldn't find time to discuss everything I wanted to go over. It was a very insightful, very exciting talk. But of course, lastly, we have to cover AI as well. What do you think about it? How should we shape our life with it? How can we use it in the most efficient way?
Yeah, that's a very deep and interesting question that could be an hour podcast on its own, right?
Exactly.
So let me try and address it very briefly. I think as a technology, machine learning, large language models, and all types of different AI variations are very cool tools. I've always been drawn to our industry because of the cool technology that goes around. As a QA, it worries me because now the machine is also writing code, and it hasn't always been good. It's getting better. But where I
Mhm.
see that it is sometimes still missing the mark is either performance or accuracy. Where one of my anecdotes is, I think it's like a very large cannon, and if you don't aim it right, you will have a lot of mess to clean up before you can shoot again. So we need to be sure that we understand what the cannon needs to point at, what we want the code to be generated about, and also understand how we can do our work in a world where machine output is non-deterministic, changes a bit about how well we prompt and give it context. Um, also back to one of the last questions, what is quality is something that we need to inspect and then look at our expertise and skills and maybe our tools, how we can do our work in a year from now.
Mhm. So use it, but always verify and inspect the outcome.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Trust but verify, as some of the other speakers say.
Mhm. And I see a similar question in the chat, which is like we can use it in all the fields in our daily life, and even for preparing our materials, like presentations or even the abstracts, right? What do you think about this? Because in the question it is said that I have heard people say that they stop listening when they realize the slides are generated by AI.
Yeah,
It's
I
interesting.
think this is very interesting because I do use AI when I want to brainstorm about an idea, I can ask AI about the context that I thought of, but maybe is also outside of my viewpoint. So I typically address it to do some research. Mostly, my all my stories are basically about my experience of addressing a certain type of problem, but I want to make sure that I take the broader aspect in mind because my audience will be from a broader demographic. Um, AI helps me write my abstracts more crisp and more clear. So I do help use it to enhance my own ideas and my own writing. I'm not a native English speaker. At the same time, I've also used it to generate some of my images. But for any presentation that I make, and I think any public speaker should make,
Mm-hmm.
is your story is the main event. And
Mm-hmm.
any slides that you bring should support your story in the best kind of way. I think in the question, it also raises the potential, um, the potential for having better visuals and more interesting visuals. And I really think that's true. At the same time, if it's only about, hey, I made these cool pictures, then your story wasn't good from the start. So if it distracts from the main event, your talk, then use it less or use it better.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Like for myself as well, of course, I'm also not a native speaker. So at least for improving the language I use, or at least for generating images I use. But yeah, I am also a program commit, right? So I sometimes see some submissions where they forget the prompts. So at that point, I'm already down, right? I don't want to vote that paper anymore. Like again, as we say previously, use it, but be careful, right? Of course, verify and inspect if everything is correct, or you have to finalize the context. And I agree with you. Of course, use it, but the story is yours. The context or what you are sharing, the main idea should be yours, original idea.
Yeah, exactly. As part of giving back to the community, I helped some conferences with reviewing papers, and I notice the same doubts and challenges that you also mentioned. Like some of the abstracts are just purely AI written. Like somebody just asked, "I want to be on stage at a software testing conferences. What should I write about? Please give me an abstract." And then you read through it, there is no real experience report, and there's really big doubts with me that the person that will be on stage is not the machine who wrote this.
Yeah.
Does the person that will speak have enough experience to actually deliver on the promise that is made in the abstract? And nowadays, what I've seen this year, it's troublesome to really make that count. And at the same time, sometimes it's very obvious to know that somebody really knows their stuff, and it's very easy to trust them in their delivery.
Mhm. But that might be the case in the future, right, Martin? Who knows? Like, we may see machines on the stage.
Could you
Just
repeat that?
we may see machines on the stage as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. One day now, somebody's going to invite an actual AI presentation, and that's where I probably want to check out.
Yeah, right. It would be interesting. All right, Martin, I think we have to wrap it up here. Again, I wanted to talk too much about many other things, but this is time uh, for this. But maybe we can do another one, right, in the future.
I would love to. There's plenty to talk about. You know me.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks for today. Thanks for your time. And any final remarks or messages to people who will watch this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks to you and the organization behind this. I think it's very valuable to share these types of stories with the community. I've seen a lot of the community fade away during all the lockdowns and ending of a lot of great events that gave me a lot of inspiration throughout the years. So my main message would be let's make sure that this community keeps thriving. Let's look out for each other, but keep creating events like this podcast, like meetups, but also small community events. Because ultimately, we need to take care of each other as a QA community, and we've been very strong in this. Let's make sure that we keep doing that.
Very nice message. Let's do that. Thank you so much again, and have a nice day.
You too, Masood.
Thank you. Bye.